Well, good morning, loved ones. Today we turn to Psalm 25 for encouragement. To you, O Lord, I lift up my soul. O my God, in you I trust. Let me not be put to shame. Let not my enemies exult over me. Indeed, none who wait for you shall be put to shame. They shall be ashamed who are wantonly treacherous. Make me to know your ways, O Lord. Teach me your paths. Lead me in your truths and teach me, for you are the God of my salvation. For you I wait all the day long. Remember your mercy, O Lord, and your steadfast love, for they have been from of old. Remember not the sins of my youth or my transgression. According to your steadfast love, remember me. For the sake of your goodness, O Lord. Good and upright is the Lord. Therefore he instructs sinners in the way. He leads the humble in what is right. He teaches the humble his ways. All the paths of the Lord are steadfast love and faithfulness for those who keep his covenant and his testimonies. For your name's sake, O Lord, pardon my guilt, for it is great. Who is the man who fears the Lord? Him will he instruct in the way that he should choose. His soul shall abide in well-being, and his offspring shall inherit the land. The friendship of the Lord is for those who fear him, and he makes known to them his covenant. My eyes are ever towards the Lord, for he will pluck my feet out of the net. Turn to me and be gracious to me, for I am lonely and afflicted. The troubles of my heart are enlarged. Bring me out of my distress. Consider my affliction and my trouble, and forgive all my sin. Consider how many are my foes, and with what violent hatred they hate me. Oh, guard my soul and deliver me. Let me not be put to shame, for I take refuge in you. My integrity and uprightness preserve me, for I wait for you. Redeem Israel, O God, out of all his troubles. In verse 13, David mentions this. He says, the soul of the man who fears the Lord shall abide in well-being. That word well-being literally means to spend the night sleeping. That is, to spend the night sleeping at rest. What this psalm helps us do is answer the question, how can we have restful souls? How can we have restful souls even when we are faced by enemies? David mentions his enemies in verse 2 and verse 19. How can we have restful souls even when we are in need of direction? That is, we're feeling a little lost and we need guidance. Well, David mentions guidance in verses 4 and 5 and 12. What about when we are lonely? Where do we go to spend the night at rest? David mentions loneliness in verse 16. And even when we are aware of our own guilt, our sin, our failures. Well, David is honest about those too. In verse 7, 11, and 18, he mentioned these things. David's trials, David's difficulties are just like your difficulties. They're just like my difficulties. And so in the face of all these and other troubles, where do we go to find souls that are at rest, to spend the night at sleep? How do we go and where do we find a place where we will abide in well-being? Well, we do what David did. David did what we ought to do. He turned to the source of healing peace. He begins Psalm 25 with verse 1 by saying this, to you, O Lord, I lift up my soul. Here's what he's doing. He said, Lord, here's my soul. Here's all the trouble. And the rest of the psalm, he walks through his troubled soul. Here are the enemies that are troubling me. Here is the direction that I need, that I'm struggling with. Here's the loneliness that is causing me to feel left out. Here is my sin that I know I am guilty of. To you, O Lord, I lift up my soul. Look at my troubled soul. And then in verse 20, he says this, oh, guard my soul, this troubled soul. Deliver this troubled soul. Let me not be put to shame, for I take my refuge in you. David did what you and I ought to do. We lift up our souls to the Lord. We present our souls to the Lord. We speak to God. We speak to God about our troubled heart. And in speaking to God about our troubled heart, we are reminded that there's someone bigger than we are, that there's someone that is stronger than our troubles. The psalm writes it, the old hymn writes it this way: I must tell Jesus all of my trials. I cannot bear these burdens alone. In my distress, he kindly will help me. He ever loves and cares for his own. I must tell Jesus, I must tell Jesus, I cannot bear these trials alone. I must tell Jesus, Jesus can save me, Jesus can help me, Jesus alone. So what do? Where do we go to find souls that abide in well-being, that spend the night asleep at rest? We lift up our troubled souls to a God who cares. And we speak to him about our trouble. And in speaking to the Lord, our trouble and our distress, we are reminded that he is great, and that he is with us, and that he is for us, and that these things will never change. Be encouraged, loved ones.